Hello, welcome. So glad to not see, but so glad that you're all there. Wish that I could see you all. I hope you're going to just let yourself relax for this next half hour and see what comes up for you because you're your own leaders, you're your own experts. I'm just here to share some information that's been helpful to me and to others, and we'll share the experts that have been I've been close to that have helped me. So right now I'm just seeing myself, so I'm hoping to be able to see. There we go. So we're talking today about connecting the dots, the mind-body connection. I am Scarlett Lunning, and my background has been involved with teaching and working with nonprofits, and then I got my master's in social work and began doing trainings, managing substance abuse prevention, and then doing mediation, working with couples for several years, premarital counseling, and now very involved with a group in Central Iowa with a police station or police department in helping young people and families figure out a different way, a good way of living together. So I'm excited because I so believe in the huge connection between our minds and our bodies, and will share my perspective on that. So before we get started in looking at this lovely picture of life's fluid, water, and maybe closing your eyes for a minute, imagining yourself in one of your favorite spots, whether you're fishing or up in a balloon or skiing down a mountain or whatever it is, that rocking a baby, holding hands with a significant other and running down a beach, riding horses. There's so many wonderful opportunities for us, even though they seem very limited sometimes with what's been going on. So let's just take a few deep breaths and we'll get started. So come on back. Now, I started with the breath because I see that as one of the big dots in our lives. It's the beginning of our life when we first come out of the womb. The most important thing is she or is he breathing? And everyone is so joyful when that infant takes its first breath. And then, as I recall in the death of my father, the watching of his breath as it was slowing and changing in how it sounded as he exited the world. And of course, we do that in many ways. He was blessed to be 94 at that time. So our physical health, breathing is a very key part. And when we get stressed or connected with what's going on in the world, or even a little thing like all of a sudden we're going to be late to work, our breathing tends to just be from the top of our lungs up instead of abdominal breathing, which really is the healthy. We need to deep down to let all of the air into our abdomen and then take some counts at letting it out. And there is a handout that is available with this webinar and that will be accessible to all of you. So more information is in the handout. Please keep breathing deeply. And I know obviously you are breathing, but I know I forget. So what are the other dots other than breath that connect mind and body today to our best health? We've already talked a little bit about breathing. Mind, that's our higher self. And I'm not talking about our brains, and I'm not talking about our individual minds. Right now, I'm talking about that there is life force, that breath that is in us, that energizes us and probably takes us to a higher level than we ourselves know. It's sort of like our souls. When you think about how human beings have risen to amazing occasions, and it's just people, anyone who might have um, stepped up to do something that they had no idea they were capable of. That just seems like it's natural to us, but we forget. We get connected to our small ideas of ourselves instead of how powerful we really are. I think of a young soldier who, when a grenade is thrown into the midst of his fellows, he or she falls on that grenade and takes the whole impact of it. Now, we're all capable of stepping up and doing things that are amazing, and we can step up for ourselves. Oftentimes, we forget that and we expect the outside world to step up for us. And right now, it's not really stepping up for us when it comes to what's going on with the virus, but there are other multiple options for us to find peace and let go of some of the fears and worries. Thought. Okay, that's powered by mind. Thought is huge when we're talking about the gift of thought. We're talking about the fact that humans have created amazing things with their thought. They've created rockets and clothing and homes and buildings that you think, I go back to the Romans and think, how the heck did they connect? Did they get that water system done? How did they even think of it? We're really phenomenal in how we're able to do that. And consciousness, that's the gift of our self-awareness, our emotions that help us know the quality of our thinking. We have a sense as to what's going on in our minds by what's going on in our emotions. And sometimes our emotions are so embedded through the habitual thinking that we have that we don't even know there's a thought in that's available. We can all of a sudden get angry as heck by some motorist who cuts us off, and we don't even realize that the feeling's coming from it. We feel like it's from that idiot who just jumped in front of us when we were trying to get in line and we're late to something. So that gift of consciousness is huge. And then, of course, our physical body, what we have been given to communicate with each other. And we are so, at least I know I have been, I don't know about you. Maybe you're good at loving everything about your body, but I have been extremely self-critical of my body since teen years. So that's not helpful, right? We need to appreciate what is in our body. Now that I'm almost 70 years old, it's important for me not to be so consumed by the fact that I have veins in my legs that take away the beautifulness of what I think my skin should look like, right? I mean, really, I'm alive, I'm moving, I'm able to do things that a lot of people at 70 can't do. So why be so mean to ourselves? And then wholeness, putting it all together. So how do I maintain a comfortable, peaceful, and connected life and really fully appreciate the goodness of life and let go of some of the fears and thoughts, along with taking care of ourselves. I mean, how do I not be irresponsible, but understand the importance that we're all in this together and really treat life and my colleagues and my family and my friends in that whole way. By the way, before we go into what I intend, I'm hoping that you have questions, because when I wrap up at about 25 after, I would love to be able to accept and see if I have any way that I can lend insight to the questions that you have. So that's always helpful, and I always learn from you. In fact, I so wish that we could have a dialogue here instead of me just talking. So what are my intentions for today? I want to share a couple of benchmarks of what I experienced to expand my mental and physical health in almost 70 years of life. I want to share some powerful stories of other people who have awakened to happy, healthy, and peaceful lives, filled lives when they weren't initially that way. I want to introduce you to some of the experts in the areas of mental and physical health who've guided many others in developing positive perspectives on greater health. And I want to share, as I've started to, my unwavering belief that more insights into your life's journey are present. And I want you to know that you are always your own expert. You may totally disagree or partially disagree with many things I say, which quite natural and understandable. So I'm hoping that I can lead you to a couple things that might be helpful. However, if it doesn't seem like things fit into your life, then you need to go with what you say, what you think. If we were given an operating manual regarding how humans function psychologically, we would know, and I've talked a little bit about this already, that our mental health is not determined by our external circumstances, instead from how we perceive those circumstances. I mentioned in a previous webinar that I met a couple who have learned to deal with two huge losses. They had an only child, a son, who in his later teenage years died in a motorcycle accident. He'd had all sorts of hope, great artist, delightful human being. And what a difficult, I can't think, having three children of my own, I can't think of a more difficult thing, and a way that somebody might perceive that their life was ended at the same time that their sons died. This couple decided to pull together and find a way to be happy in life, knowing that all of those we love who leave early, all of them want us to continue being happy here on earth. So while we're here, while we have our bodies moving around on this planet, why not be the best people we can be? Why not represent those people who have left in a way that they would want to be represented? So that couple were able to recover from that. And then just a few years ago, their house was totally destroyed with memories of their son and their own other families, and no home, no memorabilia. And they also recovered from that. And I'm sure that you can and have met, in fact, people who have made those big changes. We live in separate realities, as I said earlier, and we're always feeling or thinking. That helps me to know that if I am in a bad place, that there's something going on there with my thinking, that either it might have even been a thought from long ago that is hidden in my body and comes out and is triggered in a anger or sadness or something like that. But I do know that if it's not happening now, I don't need to be feeling in the way that if it were. We have the power of life within us that provides resiliency and peace. So I talked a little bit about the three principles already: the energy and intelligence of all life, consciousness, universal power to be aware, and thought, the universal power to create thought. And so we create our lives always, we're constantly creating our lives via these three principles. They are like gravity. Basically, they are what helped us to create the things that we have on the world helped us to not create happy lives. I mean, it's basically our thinking about ourselves and other people that causes us to decide that we're unhappy, that things are not going well, decide that that incident is so horrible that we cannot overcome it. That is how we think and how we feel. So that's our human operating system. If we were given that manual early on, that would have been a huge help. They're words, though. They're words to describe how we create our experience here on Earth. So it's important not to get too caught up in the words. It's sort of like, you know, when you throw a ball to a dog and instead of looking at the ball, he looks at your hand. So that's what the words are. They're my hand throwing the ball. Instead, go deeper and look at the ball. They are descriptors of a powerful force that lies beneath the words, the essence of all of us. And so in regards to my benchmarks, I wanted to share that initially growing up, I developed a fairly positive attitude about things. I still thought that my life had to do with what was going on. So if I didn't do well in a test, if a boyfriend dropped me, I would look outside and I wouldn't look inside to say, okay, so how can I deal with that to be okay again? Instead, I would, when I saw the car or make of car that my old boyfriend used to drive, I would get miserable. So anyway, I thought that it was our personalities that made us optimistic and positive. I didn't realize that it was in us. So I made some kind of a story and I did lots of comparisons with other people. So if so and so's like that, then I'm not okay. Or if so and so is like that, then that makes me more okay. You know, the silly things we do to make sense of life and how it's supposed to be. So that's how it went for me most of the time when I was growing up. And I made the determination, at least later, to, you know, from circumstances that were not positive, I learned to push forward and to know that things would get better, because that's one of the things that experience taught me, is that if I wait for a while, my happiness will come back. But I thought it was coming back from things that were happening, I still thought, in the outside world. So, why am I spending so much time on the psychological aspect of the dots? It's because they have such a huge impact on our bodies. And I am just learning, and science is just learning, how much that is true. Our memories are just memories. They are over. They don't define you, and they don't need to honor the negative thoughts that drop into your head. One of my favorite metaphors that I think I shared before is that if you look at the sky, you see all different birds flying through, whether it's the giant eagles, or it's a crow, or it's a beautiful little hummingbird. So they are allowed to go through the sky without anything pulling them down. They're just able to fly through. We have thoughts like that fly through our brain, but we will not let them go. We have some thoughts that drop in, and we pull them down and we decide, oh yes, that was horrible. That is horrible. That memory, oh, how miserable I am. That says who I am, that I made that horrible mistake. So our memories are just memories. They're over. They don't define you, and you don't need to honor the negative thoughts that drop into your head. You can let them fly through as the birds fly through the sky. When you know this, you begin to see that beliefs don't serve you. They're created by you, And you can believe, there's a you out left out of the slide, I apologize, and you can believe and therefore think differently. Your brilliant sun of who you really are is always behind that dark cloud. Those thoughts, those circumstances that we decide that we cannot be happy and healthy. Or maybe you can look at that dark cloud that we've experienced recently as the pandemic, because huge amounts of fear, huge amounts of hurt and loss have happened with that dark cloud. So how, since we are living and working and trying to bring worth to the world, how can we do that in the midst of that dark cloud? Something about the experts that I have talked about in this area. Sydney Banks was the one who identified the 3 Ps, and he did come from a life where he felt things were miserable. He was in foster care in Scotland, thought he had a horrible, horrible life, moved to Canada, and worked as a welder. And one day, in a conversation with someone, he began to see that his thinking had so much to do with his insecurities. In fact, he was just thinking he was insecure. This led to an enlightened experience that led him to identify the understanding of the 3 principles, which I see as our gravity of psychological health and unhealth. Bill and Linda Pettit are a wonderful couple. Linda is a counselor who met Bill later on in life. His first wife had died, and she is a very gentle counselor who you see how she's been able to create her life. Her first husband was killed in a car accident around the holidays when I think her child was, very young. And Bill Pettit is a psychiatrist who was miserable, basically, as had a hard time making it through med school because of his depression. And when he met Sid Banks and realized, this was after over 20 years of misery, he just separated from his wife because he was so angry about life. He allowed the fact that people were not doing what they needed to do, and he was frustrated. He didn't see the health in people or in himself. And when he met Sid, he started to see how his thinking had caused the misery that was going on for him. Now for the last 30 years that he's known this, he's been helping people all around the world who have experienced really difficult things, have been involved in lots of pain, PTSD, rapes, all sorts of horrible situations, and help them to see the possibilities for a better life. George and Linda Pransky, very similar to Bill, met Sid Banks when they were trying to help people in their practice to be better. They're psychologists. And Sid asked them, "What do you do?" And George says, "Oh, well, we take them back into their past and we try help them go through the tough stuff that's happened in their lives, and then hope that they'll, by acknowledging this, that they'll realize that they can be happy." And then Sid said, "So, are they usually happy?" And George said, really uncomfortably, "No, not really." And Sid said, "Well, I would think it wouldn't be helpful to be sitting in all those horrible emotions." And as Linda and George began to see the people around Sid become happier in looking, in recognizing our inside out situation, that the way we look at the world has so much to do with our mental health, they have since then helped companies like Boeing and couples figure out different ways of living. So you can find out lots more about this. It's become very international, the 3principlesglobalcommunity.com. And all of these are in the handout. So attachments. Now, this is something that has just become extremely interesting to me because uh, I realize that I have attachments that limit my psychological growth. And sometimes they're an attachment to a dream that I have that has not been realized. I won't say lots about this because I realize our time is going very quickly and I want to get to the body. Genes we thought that genes were what are destined our body as far as what ailments we would get. And they are finding out more and more through epigenetics that we have so many genes that are turned off and on depending on what's going on with us, how our feeling state is, what our hope state is. Exercise and diet. These are the experts here. I will not spend lots of time on this because I know that you are all needing to get back to other things. But I did want to point out Robert Sapolsky's book, which is entitled Why Zebras Don't Get, what's the word? It's ulcers. Why zebras don't get ulcers. And basically it's because they totally forget it. After a lion has chased them and all the blood goes to their legs and they run as fast as possible and then they're okay, they just go back to grazing. Whereas humans, we hold on to those things. If we have a bad situation, we bring it up the next day and the next day and sometimes the next year and the next decade. I wanted to point out that for me, exercise has been just a small part of my life. But for 22 minutes every day, I exercise with Miranda Esmond White. And she has proven that her stretching exercises really help with mobility. And yesterday I was able to climb a tree. So at 70, I think that I give Miranda credit for all of that. So only 1 to 5 individuals are born with a genetic disease. We have many ways to express our genealogy. And there's even the possibility of extending our telomeres, which are little wispy feather-like things on the ends of cells that are a signal of our aging. But people have been doing some research to show that via positive thinking and emotions, they have been able to expand their telomeres and therefore lengthen their life. They've also found that our heart is a brain in a way, and that so much of our life is categorized in our heart. That's a funny word. And so if we have an open heart, our heart can lead us to better decisions and to sometimes, if you put your hand in your heart and ask a question, your wisdom will give you the best answer. So stress causes the fight and flight stimulus, and it impacts our blood. When we're in love, when we're in a good feeling state, our blood is healthier, and thus our cells are healthier. Thus our immune system is stronger. So living in a positive place is something we all are able to do, even when difficult things are happening. So move, keep moving. Your wisdom will guide you to what works best for you. With diet, I'm not a diet expert. I do know what's healthy. I know what portions are reasonable. Sometimes I don't do it. But most important, don't judge or shame yourself when you're not making good diet decisions. Let it go. Shift the next day. And my greatest thought on diet is love yourself more than your food. I know when I go for binges, when I want to eat a whole pint of ice cream, that I know that I'm not really loving myself. So wholeness, be good to yourself, move, know that your habits have become a part of your emotional body, and be curious about which of those habits might not be helping you. And most of all, love yourself and others. Life is an inside-out experience, and whatever's happening in your external environment, like the COVID, you can find peace in the midst of that. Breathe, relax, let go. And you know that you have wonderful EAP benefits. Please take advantage of this. It's always nice to have a mirror to look into, talk to somebody to reflect back what might be helpful for you. And also, financial consultation and legal consultation and elder care, identity theft, and life coaching are available. And this is a confidential, free and confidential service you get through your companies. So any questions?
Scarlett.
Thanks, Joanna.
Yeah, if anyone has a question, please use the raise your hand function. I do want to point out that I attached a handout called Connecting the Dots, the Mind-Body Connection. So there's a PDF attached to the webinar, so please, click on that to download it. If you have questions, you can use the raise your hand function, and I will see those come in, and I'll moderate a short Q&A with Scarlett. I do want to say that when I was reading through Scarlett's presentation last week in preparation for this, I was really kind of struck by the love yourself more than your food, because I find myself, especially during the COVID situation, just kind of mindlessly eating more. And I have a little one who snacks a lot, and then I find myself snacking, on the things that she snacks on. And while mostly it's healthy, it's oftentimes things that I don't really need to be eating. And so, yeah, I really like that, Scarlett. So thank you for sharing that. The other thing I want to mention is that next week on the 29th at 10 a.m., I will be facilitating our webinar, and that will be the last webinar for July. And that will be about stress and burnout. So please go to our website, www.efr.org/webinars, to learn more about that and get registered. We have a question.
Great.
How do you balance stepping up for yourself and standing up to others when you're stressed? And then the example that they gave is school reopening and self-conscious. So how do you balance stepping up for yourself and standing up to others when you are stressed?
Wow, and there's so many unknowns when it comes to the school situation. I guess I can only go from what I would do myself, because I see my children who are dealing with that with their children, and trying to bring myself present and make the best decision I can for myself and my family, and figure out what that's going to do in regards to the situation with school. If, for instance, I didn't feel like sending my child back and I didn't have the option of not sending them, I would do my best to be as positive as possible, to take some time away and just recognize how much of my thinking am I giving away to this situation. What might I focus on that would be healthier, that would be more helpful? Because what I find myself doing is going in a circle, a thinking circle. Well, what do I do about this? Well, it's the governor's fault, or it's not the governor's fault, or my kid wants to go to school, I don't want my child to go to school. You just keep going over and over that. So holding on to yourself and know that you are just fine in this moment, and making the best decision you can, and then not overthinking it afterwards. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you. Well, that is it for today. So a big thanks again to Scarlett for facilitating our webinar. And again, if you would like to learn more about stress and burnout, next week, 1 week from today, the 29th at 10 a.m., I will be facilitating a webinar on that. So please get registered. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks, Joanna.